Welcome to the Shakaama Live Show with your host Shakaama. In this video, I don't care if you're on the left, I don't care if you're on the right. If you truly believe that that's what you should believe in, the left or the right, I want you to click the thumbs up button on this so that everybody can watch this video and hear the message. Because I'm here to tell you, you are not getting left versus right. We libertarians are trying to warn you about Biden versus Trump. Turn on any news channel, and if it's a leftist-leaning news channel, you'll hear nothing but hatred. But there's a curious thing happening on right-leaning news channels. On the right-leaning news channels, you'll hear them not just complain about Biden and praise Trump, which seems to be the most logical thing to do. You'll also hear them advise Biden what he could do to not only help American people, but raise his approval rating. Wait, what is that? Why would the right-leaning people be advising Biden how to raise his approval rating? To answer that, it might shock you to hear that in a lot of polls, Biden is still very much 1% point below Trump. Just 1%. Now, even as a libertarian, I could go on and on about how wonderful Trump was as a president. Probably the best in modern history, excluding the founding fathers of the country. Everything was great, and we were headed for a new golden age of America. So it would seem strange to any logical person that Trump would be equal to Biden, given that by every measure, Biden has destroyed the United States almost in just 12 months. We went from an almost golden age to utter destruction, but the two presidents are considered neck and neck in the polls. It seems impossible until you go back to the right-leaning news channels. Now, clearly the leftist-leaning news channels are a corrupt bunch, no holes barred, piece of garbage that lie, misinform, miseducate, and scare their audience. But what's going on the right-leaning news channels? The right-leaning news channels are not actually putting out a story that distances themselves from the left. If you ask any libertarian, you'll hear Democrats and Republicans are two sides of the same coin. That sounds crazy out of context, but now the polls seem to match what the libertarians have been trying to tell you. How could any sane person vote for Biden, given how awesome Trump was as a president? Well, let's take a look at those news channels again. During his presidency, at no point did the leftist news ever compliment Trump on anything he did, including pointing out to people that they were making more money and inflation was actually down and everything bad Obama did to the economy was reversed almost in 3 months when he took office. Remember Obama said, Are you going to have a magic wand to fix the economy? Yep, in the first 3 months, he almost fixed the entire economy in the first 3 months. And in fact, in the first week, he set about fixing a lot of stuff. His first day in office, he onboarded a lot of corporations. In fact, the leftist news out and out lied and told people the exact opposite. And incredibly, people didn't look at gas prices, didn't check their paychecks, and say, those people are lying. For whatever reason, people just accepted what the leftist news said. But wait, there's more. Online, on social media, they captured the attention of young adults and young people, and also told them how horrible Trump was, and that he should be in jail, and how criminal he was. And they believed it, and still believe it. Oh, and that alone, you would think, would have been countered by right-leaning news. Well, it wasn't. Right-leaning news didn't point out the obvious, that gas prices were low, that we were oil producers, not oil consumers, that wages were rising, that salaries had increased when it hadn't increased in 30 years before Trump took office, that the economy had shrunk in a good way, that it was the safest it had ever been, that female safety had hit an all-time high ever in the history of the country. The right-leaning news never ever said any of that. In fact, the first 3 years, the right-leaning news was led by people that call themselves never-Trumpers. Those were Republicans that were against Trump. In fact, some of the most famous conservative people at the time were also very strict never-Trumpers. So the message of hate against Trump was mirrored on the right as it was on the left. There was nowhere that President Trump's actual successes could be heard. So when poll after poll was done for the 2020 election, the two men were neck and neck. Now, Biden had never won any presidential race, and he had ran 3 times, and is and has always been a terrible campaigner. But almost everyone, except regular Americans, were against Trump. While libertarians can sit back, point, laugh, we don't actually live on an island, so we suffer right along with everyone else. But we see with eyes unclouded. It's ironic that the left silenced, demonized, and spent energy hating the right, when the right was literally saying exactly what they were saying against Trump. What's also funny is, as much as the left want to claim Fox News is polar opposite to them, all of their actual news stories are precisely the same. They get it from the same source. I've told you I am a licensed journalist here in Nevada. I submit to AP News. You might hear my story, probably on CNN. I don't know if Fox has ever carried one of my stories, but I know for a fact that CNN has. The only difference is they don't have radical leftists foaming at the mouth, brazenly lying while reporting the same exact news as as CNN. In fact, the owners of Fox want it to be CNN 2. After the backlash Fox had from promoting Biden in the 2020 election, when they lost viewership by the millions, Fox stopped promoting Biden. It's funny that the left was all the while bashing Fox. There is no such thing as an actual conservative-leaning, truthful news organization in existence that is actually opposed to leftist propaganda. It does not exist in America. It is so insane that Americans think there is even a right. That is funny to libertarians. And the left gets away with criminal level accusations against what they think are right-leaning people, to the point that falsely accused people are in no way punished for it, to the point that they have made up the term radical conservative or far right. It is hilarious that such a term would even exist. A radical conservative would mean a person that believes in the extreme rights of a family, extreme beliefs in small government, extreme beliefs in conservation of the planet and the protection of women and children. Every example that they give of a far-right person or far-right group turns out to be leftist. It's simply propaganda. There is no such thing as a far right. You cannot have a radical belief in the rights of a family. Families either have a right to exist or they don't. It's also laughable that they say far right, but don't believe the extreme protection of women and children, because the radical left actually doesn't believe in the protection of women and children. In fact, it is one of their talking points that women don't need protection, nor do children, according to them. Every despot, every fascist, every radical leader that has ever existed, or will ever exist is leftist. You cannot have a radical, right-leaning, conservative leader. What would that look like? A radical conservative that yells, he's so radical that he is stepping down? Would he say he's going to protect the forest and the streams? It just doesn't exist. There is no radical way to protect women and trees and rivers. At best, you could say, no humans should drink from this river. That's about as radical conservationist as you can get, which even then is anti-human and not conservative. The concept just doesn't make any sense. The more radical you become, the more you end up on the left. Throughout history, anything radical has been on the left. So this is how you end up with poll numbers for Trump and Biden being separated by 1%. By the way, all the talking points against Trump have been relented to by Trump. His tax returns, his finances, his records, his organization's books, everything has been turned over in court, and you heard nothing about it. And yet, the talking points continue. They are still saying he hasn't turned over his tax return, when in fact, he did. They looked at them and found nothing to report on. It was a horrible victory. He's literally being audited, and after turning over his tax returns, they found that not only the left had nothing to report on, but that neither did the IRS. Everything Trump has been accused of has all come to nothing, unlike Joe Biden, who actively does horrible and sinful things, but claims to be a Catholic. Trump actually attends church, prays, doesn't throw it in your face, and pretty much doesn't commit sinful acts. Biden has a full history of doing not only sinful, but horrible acts, especially against black people. And black people voted for him by 90% is just outrageous. But again, the people you'd think that would report on it, right-leaning news, doesn't. Biden literally has cases pending against him, brought against him by families. No one reports on them. Again, the poll numbers have him neck and neck with Trump. It's hilarious to Libertarian. Libertarian is the party of leave me alone. Libertarian is the classical liberal. The classical liberal does not exist in the Democratic Party at all. The classical liberal is what you would call a Republican in the 1800s, right? Every man is equal. Pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. That's classical liberal. The liberal part comes into the definition of every man is equal. No one is king. No one is lord. Every man is equal. This is why the Republican Party platform was to abolish slavery. The left would have you believe that the Democrats abolished slavery. No, they did not. Nor have they ever voted for the rights of black people. And yet, black people vote Democrat almost religiously. Thank you all for watching.